to have my first guest ever, Grace Gunning, here with me for this premiere edition. Grace, what's going on?
Well, I'm excited to be here. A little nervous.
Are you?
Like, this is such a big time in this palatial space with all the
I
palm trees.
know, right?
Amazing.
Yeah.
But thanks.
So you're here originally. I mean, there's no mystery to you. Leslie Hill was going to be the first guest because she's the one who got me
As
this
she should have
introduction to Matt in this show. But then she couldn't do it because today is First Friday, and there was going to be a big shindig here in Rhinecliff for First Friday, and Leslie and Jeff were going to be cooking. So she couldn't do it. And I said, well, who am I going to get? I need somebody like bubbly and lively and smart. And she didn't even bat an eye. She said, oh, Grace going to get her.
Oh, you
And
didn't
so-
see the gun to the back that I held up there?
No, I didn't know you were anywhere near her when she said that. So I know nearly nothing about you, which seems like it would be an ideal thing for an interview show. Where are you from originally? Where were you born?
I am from Ohio.
Whereabouts?
It's a tiny town called Blacklick, Ohio. It's central Ohio.
Is that 2 words? Black Lick?
No, one word. It was, lick is a stream, a creek.
Okay.
And it was it was a very Native American area. So in our yard, we lived. Ohio is pretty flat, but in our yard we had a deep ravine, and in that ravine was a Cuyahoga wagon that had been,
Really?
yeah, it was the ruins of a Cuyahoga wagon.
That's
but
hilarious.
As kids, we played on it, and we lived in cornfield land, and we'd just go out every time they plowed for corn and get arrowheads galore.
Right.
Oh, which I have none left.
How come?
Because I'm an idiot. Why didn't I save those?
I had a small collection of arrowheads that my grandpa had collected in Indiana, right next door to Ohio.
Now, are you from Indiana or?
I was born in Illinois, raised mostly kind of in Cincinnati, sixth grade through graduation.
Okay.
So very formative years, but then
Yeah.
22 years in New York City. So
Yeah.
sometimes people are like, where are you from? I'm like, well, New York City, because
Yeah, but there's certain things don't wear off from Ohio.
no,
They just don't.
no, lots of stuff.
For the good and for the bad.
It was great. I loved growing up in Cincinnati, and I always say
Cincinnati's neat.
it was a great place to live, but I wouldn't want to visit there.
Yeah, I know. I always say, my sister lives in Yellow Springs, which is a pretty cool town. My niece and my sister and their families, and it's a little island in Ohio. But I used to say, because I stayed there with my kids for a while, and I go, Ohio, it's got a big heart, a pretty small mind, but a very big heart.
That's nice. I never heard that.
I made it up.
Oh, it's lovely. And where is Black Lake?
Black Lake is about 20 miles, maybe 25 miles east of Columbus.
Okay.
So Denison University.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
not all the way there. That's Granville, where I lived for a while as well. But it was very rural when I was a kid. Now it's kind of swallowed up by Columbus.
Right. And what did your
Straw.
folks do that they lived in Black Lake?
Well, my dad started out as a newspaperman.
Oh, nice.
And then he became he consulted on writing. He would go to companies who used tech, would write tech or that sort of thing, and talk to them about how to write clearly. Basically,
Nice.
write the way you speak. Cut out the gobbledygook,
Right.
And he and my mom developed this technique that you would count the words, and the most accessible writer to anyone was Mark Twain, because he basically wrote on a 3rd grade level. And so he
Very
wrote
interesting.
the book, Take the Technique of Clear Writing, also Take the Fog Out of Writing, but it's still taught in colleges today.
Technically Clear Writing.
Yeah.
That's the book your dad wrote.
The Technique of Clear Writing.
Now, Mark Twain's purported to have said about writing, if I had more time, I could have made it shorter. Yeah. Which I just always love, because I think it's harder to write something terse and concise than it is to just...
Very much so, yeah.
Yeah.
We like to add flowers.
Yeah, flowers are nice.
They are, but sometimes if you're trying to explain something, he rewrote the Army manual,
Eggads.
in the 50s, I would imagine.
That's funny. Well, there's also a joke about army writing, which is it's the writing that tells you what it's about to tell you, and then it tells you the thing, and then it tells you what it just told you. And I don't know, maybe that came from Catch 22.
That sounds like a catch 22.
Maybe now that I think about it, maybe that's
Because
Heller.
that's kind of a catch 22 in itself.
Yeah. So are you now, or have you ever been a writer?
No, I'm not very good at it.
Aren't you?
No, but my sister, my brother, and my other brother all are very good at writing. And my ex-husband wrote a baseball TV show, and my daughter is a fantastic writer. So I'm not a very good reader either.
Really?
Something's like got screwed up in me because my whole family is, literature bound. But when iPod came out, it was my heaven.
Really?
I listened to books all the time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So are you dyslexic at all?
Probably I'm older. They didn't really check for that.
Right.
At that point, it was just, you are a little slow.
Right. A little slow.
So, but now I'm catching up, and I'm just like delighted. Moby
Right.
Dick, who knew? Even if I'd read it in high school, I probably wouldn't have liked it.
No.
It's just a real waste on the young. Like, who's going to
So
relate
much
to
of it
a
is.
middle-age crisis,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I don't know. I reread Fitzgerald, The Great Gatsby,
I've never read
a few years ago, and I had to read it in high school. And I read it in high school. I was like, whatever, but then read it when I was like 40 or something. And I'm like, oh yeah, I get it.
Now I get it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just,
I recognize the people.
what are they thinking? Who decides those things 100 years ago and then sticks with it?
Yeah, I don't know. I suppose that's changing all the time.
Yeah, I imagine as teachers more and more with their own curriculum and that sort of thing.
And so, what do you do now? If you're not
As
writing.
little as possible. No. Actually, that's not even true. I make things for a living. And I'm going to go back. I'm going to take you back to what got
Good.
me going on this. Okay, settle in. Get your nice teacup, all right? So when I moved up here, I had twin girls who were 4 years old, and I needed to start making a living, and I really didn't want to go to work. So I started sharing babysitting with people, and I started working for a jeweler in Rhinecliff, actually. And I made things, and she said, you should do this wholesale show. Call this woman up and tell her that you've been in business for this long, blah, 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 blah. And I wasn't going to do it because I was like totally intimidated by making phone calls like that. And she said, and call me right back and let me know how it went. For the mere fact that she told me to call her back, I felt duty-bound to call the place so I could report back. So I started doing wholesale, and I made glass boxes in a spare bedroom in our house, and I could start helping support my kids. And I, even when they were little, I'd get up at 4 o'clock in the morning sometimes and work, and so I could go with them to the, Wilcox Lake,
Right.
and that sort of thing. And then, as time went on, I changed my job within my boss, being the boss. I made different things, and I luckily could always make a living. So when I moved to Rhinecliff, I had a different business going, and I made copper boxes where Sandy and I worked for 13 years side by side.
Really?
Yes. And then things sort of started falling off for me, and work was slowing down, and I had to say, Sandy, you actually are making a better living every place else than with me. So let's just, before you start to hate me,
Right.
let's call it a day. So then I was working by myself, and going on, and then the pandemic hit, and it was like all my work was gone, and I decided to sell my house, and I went on unemployment, and I decided I am going to make jewelry. I've always wanted to make jewelry.
Right.
Felt like I couldn't do it. I was just like I wouldn't have the ability to see the detail. And but somehow not having to make money from it, it didn't matter if I took all day making one thing.
Right.
Because there was no pressure. And I was realizing it was the first time in 40 years That it wasn't like I was making things that I could make and I enjoyed making, but I was doing it for the money and tried to make it as production conscious, wise choices as possible. How fast could I make something? And now, in the last year, I have this new studio up in Germantown, and I'm making these things, and I am like, I feel like Snow White has gone to the forest, and I don't even have the dwarves helping me make the things. I'm just there in my little cottage making things, and I'm so content.
That's nice.
And even though all the horrible stuff is going on in the world, and I'm in my little bubble, I've just sort of not ever been as happy. And I drive from my apartment on Woods Road. I don't know if you know Woods Road in Italy, but it's like going through a fairy tale to my, it's like it's all woods and dapple, and at night owls fly over me. I saw a bobcat one night. It's just incredible.
Oh, that's wonderful.
You are now looking at a person who's like, tra-la, tra-la.
Super happy.
Yeah.
So where did you live in Rhinecliff?
I lived, if you know Rhinecliff. Some people listening may, some may not. It's a metropolis of 462
Lovely.
people, is that right?
Really?
I don't know.
I had no idea.
Something like that. And I live up on the ridge, which is, I think, the nicest place to live because you see the river and you also see the sunrise. So it's Orchard Street, which is across from the old schoolhouse.
Right.
And in my living here, we got house numbers. It used to be you'd put on your anything to be delivered. It would be Orchard Street across from the old schoolhouse.
That was your official address.
That was my address. So now we got numbers, and we're like,
that fancy
I guess
stuff.
it's good because the ambulances can find us. I'm not next to the big old tree. I'm lying there.
It'd be
Come
helpful.
help me.
And so you moved to an apartment in Tivoli.
Yeah.
And is that part of Germantown, Tivoli?
No.
Oh, because I thought you said you lived in Germantown.
No, my studio is in
okay.
Germantown. I have a
Gotcha.
10-minute commute every day.
Oh, that sounds tough.
Yes, it's very,
And when did you move into that apartment?
2 years ago.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And you've made friends there, I'm guessing?
I've lived in this area for a long time.
Okay.
And so I have friends there. They avoid me, but I know they're there. And I go up to them when they're hiding their faces, and I say, "It's me," and they go, "We know."
It must be tough.
It's tough. It's
Yeah.
tough on them, I think, because then what I do to them is just unspeakable. No. So I have friends.
A friend. Yeah, it's interesting. I moved to Rhinebeck about 10 years ago, and I didn't know anybody. And
right?
moved here from Woodstock, where I knew everybody.
Yeah.
And it was tough to not have friends. And slowly but surely, I met some people. I through tennis for me.
Yeah.
And I met this tennis crew, and it really opened a door to meeting people.
It's a good thing to know how to do.
Yeah.
Going to Germantown, I didn't know anybody. So it was the people who I bought lemons from at the market. It was like, "How are you?" And they're going, "Fine."
So sweet.
And then they asked me my name one day, and then they called the police. No. No,
That's right. Now
but
we get a name
slowly
and
now,
fingerprints.
Yes, exactly. But it's now there are probably a handful of people in town, mostly in kind of service areas, that I would consider my friends.
Right.
They know me. They say hi to me.
And do you walk into sort of downtown Tivoli from where your
I can.
place is?
Yeah,
Nice.
it's the sweetest town.
Yeah.
It doesn't have. You can park there's a market named Otto's.
Yeah.
And you can park. I've never not been able to park right in front of it.
Okay.
As opposed to Rhinebeck now, where you're driving around like 2.5 hours to
It's
find a
tough.
parking place. So.
Nice. So you brought some stuff with. One of them looks like it's a piece of jewelry. Is that what you would call this, jewelry?
I do.
It's, it looks like a.
Some people might call it alien.
It looks like a pendant, I guess. And right, is that what I know nothing about jewelry?
We're gonna have a class after this show.
Good. and it looks like it's made out of silver.
It is.
And it's just gorgeous. It's freaking gorgeous.
That's the right word.
And there's a photo inside. It looks like an old sort of daguerreotype of a young girl's dress.
Yes, and the dress is on acetate over mother of pearl. So you see the pearl through it. You can't, because we're in a cave right now with palm trees.
Right.
And then there's mica over it, because if you put glass over it, it would break. And so
why would the glass break?
that's a molecular question that I really, it's brittle, I guess is the word. But, you know, if you tap glass, it's going to break.
And mica is more durable than glass?
Yeah, well, it's a stone, number one. And I don't know if you've ever gone into the woods and found mica, but it peels off in layers. And it's kind of almost like fingernails, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the weirdest sense.
At one point in my youth, when you were finding arrowheads in Ohio, I was finding mica in our backyard. We lived in Delaware, and it was all woods. They tore down the woods. They were building something, but they were plowing the soil. There was mica everywhere.
Oh, it's amazing.
It was so much fun to find.
And it's like smoked glass.
And to peel apart.
Yeah.
So where do you get the mica from?
I would have to kill you if I
Oh, come on.
I eBay.
eBay?
Yeah. I mean, it's actually, they use it for wood stoves because, you know, when you can see into, I mean, they can use a certain glass. I guess now they've got some amazing stuff. But in the older days, they used mica because you could see through it and it wouldn't burn.
So this pendant, it has 4 flowers on it and then 2, what are these things? They look a little bit...
leafy things, I think.
Yeah.
You know, I have these. One of the things I found in my COVID lockdown times I will admit, I become obsessive about things. I found this guy out in Arizona who is single-handedly saving these things called impression dyes, which is what those, each little... on that pendant, there are flowers, there are leaves, there are, if you anybody wants to see them, they're on Instagram. I'm Grace.Gunning, just if you want to take a look and see what they are. But each little
Dot, that's a pretty middle name.
Yeah, Dot. But he's saved from this jewelry industry that is basically going out of business. These impression dyes, people hand carve these things, and then they're made into steel impression dyes. So it's probably too long for me to go into, and I would really get detailed because I'm so obsessed with it. But he goes to these. So, for example, in Rhode Island, it was fashion jewelry for the most part. You know, like even something you get at Kresge's, like say you'd have a pressed hand holding little flowers. Well, that hand, I mean the 3D hand holding flowers, that 3D hand would be pressed into an impression die. Okay. So it's like got a dimension to it. Even though it's flat, the metal is then formed and convex and concaved.
And what's the die made out of?
Steel.
Okay.
And so you use a hydraulic press with either like a urethane or a lead to push that silver or that base metal into the shape of that hand, for example. On their flowers. And then you cut around that shape and you put those components into your piece of jewelry. So like even 3 years ago, I think there were 200 of these jewelry dye makers or components different. There are now 4. Yeah.
Egads.
Yeah. And so this guy is saving them all these things and their machines that are just not used for anything but this from the scrap yard and taking them out to Arizona. And he's got an incredible 9,000 square foot building that he houses all these things, and his whole family does. I mean, it's just... And he's got followers who love him beyond. I mean, they would pray to him if they could. They just they love him.
I'm sure they could if they really wanted to.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. And what's his name?
His name is Kevin Potter, and the company is Potter USA.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. I love people, and you see people in all industries doing that, just sort of grabbing up stuff that is no longer as popular as it once was. And
all these, I mean, I use a lot of old machinery in my shop, and I think my oldest piece of machinery is like 160 years old, and it's like sculpture.
Right.
And the thing about it is, it's a kick shear, and it basically
kick
cuts.
shear?
You stomp on it, and
Okay.
it cuts a piece of metal, cuts a sheet of metal.
Wow.
And
Sounds dangerous.
Very, very, very dangerous, Norm. Very. Wow.
You're so badass.
I am badass.
Yeah.
And so, with this, if you tried to get one today, you might get one from, I'm not going to say names.
Right.
They'll
No.
sue you.
Sure. Yeah.
But these, you can adjust all these different components, and it's still working after 160 years. It's just beautiful.
And how big is a kick shear?
Well, they can vary. They can be up to.
How big's yours?
Mine is delicate. Mine is only like 24 inches wide. It's the smallest one I've ever seen.
So that's the biggest it can cut. That's the biggest piece of
Mine.
metal you can put through yours.
Yes. Yes.
Huh.
Yes.
It must weigh a
whole
whole bunch.
When I moved, I had to have 2 crews of very, very, very strong guys moving things, and they were really strong.
And you kick it? Does that provide the power? Or
You
is
stomp on it,
You stomp
basically.
on it. So that's where the power comes from. It's not
Yeah.
electrically
No,
assisted.
it's all hand run. I have some.
So there's a bunch of gears and
It's springs, really.
Springs.
Springs and levers.
huh.
Yeah, come and see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I will now do a little kickoff for the
yeah, perfect.
art studio
Oh, I
view,
love a good segue.
which is happening this weekend, and it's 31 artists between Hyde Park and Germantown, and it's a self-guided tour that Joanna Hess is the director of. It's just incredible, and she is the head of the gallery. She and her husband Albert have
Albert Shahinian, Fine Arts,
Shahinian, yes.
right there in
Yes, the
beautiful
greatest
downtown
name.
Rhinebeck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's happening this weekend, and I'm on that tour. So actually tomorrow at 11 o'clock, you can come and see these beautiful, beautiful machines that I get to use, and you might even be able to stomp on the kick shear if
So
you give me
this
50 cents.
this tour, which I've done from either side. I opened my house as a studio 1 year and had people in. It was really nice. But I was like, I miss going out and seeing what everybody else is doing.
Yes.
And you said there's 31 artists. And I'm holding the brochure in my hand, which is just great. But also you can go to artstudioviews.com.
Yeah, views with an S on the end. Make
Art Studio Views,
sure.
not a Z.
So
an
what
S.
did you make? What did you show in your studio?
Oh, everything. Just a smorgasbord
Which is
of like
fun.
30 years of
Yeah,
different stuff.
yeah.
But, I sold a bunch of work, which is always satisfying for all artists,
Sure.
I think.
Validation.
That's it. The ultimate validation.
You like it too? Not just me?
Yeah. And so you're going to be showing the jewelry, and this little pendant is just so beautiful.
Those
and
are all
precious.
my this year's work.
And what would this go for?
That's expensive. And I can't
It
remember.
feels
It's
expensive.
Like,
It's
it might
substantial.
Be $185.
$185.
Yeah.
Not so much to pay for. It's one of a kind, I'm guessing.
It's one of a kind, and as I say, it takes me all day. I'm going to get faster, but right now I'm enjoying this slow-mo.
So do you make these elements in the
draw,
steel
right?
die?
Yeah.
And then affix them to combine them here?
And then you solder them, which totally freaked me out forever until I just went, do it. And then it was like, this is much easier than I
The
thought.
soldering.
Yeah. Well, on my boxes, I solder copper, which, I've done for years. It's a different thing. It's just a different thing. It's actually easier to solder silver than it is the copper.
All right, now I'm holding a copper picture frame.
Yeah.
Is this the kind of stuff you were making when you were in business with Sandy?
No, Sandy and I did this, and I can even tell you the steps Sandy did. She did them so much better than I do them.
Well, Sandy.
I know, kind of better at everything in
I
the world
know.
than anybody else.
Yeah. So this frame, this copper frame,
Yep.
is gorgeous. You work with the copper. It seems it's a little bit oxidized. Do you treat it with anything?
Yeah, I patina it with
Okay.
chemicals.
And like
I
a
can't even tell you what they are because I kind of don't want to know what
copper
they are.
oxide,
Copper bad
copper
stuff.
sulfoxide, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just gorgeous. But there's art on the inside of this frame, and this is your art.
I would call it more a collage because it's a etching from a 17th century, I think, or maybe earlier, of a young woman who is awestruck. I kind of think of her as seeing the universe. She just, and it was the tiniest little detail. And I'm embarrassed, I don't know who did it.
Right.
It was a tiny detail in a huge etching.
It's a beautiful, beautiful old etching of this girl looking awestruck, but her sight line is straight at the cartoon character Nancy. Who was friends with Sluggo, and it was a little bit of an inscrutable comic strip. Like what? But it was everywhere. Every newspaper had Nancy.
Always.
And
it was for it seemed like so simple, yet so complex.
Yes.
It was kind of like what does the pool mean?
Yeah. So the etching is looking straight at Nancy. What are you thinking about?
Well, I try not to think as much as possible because I find it really just screws me up. But then after I did it and I was looking, I was going, they're both cartoons. This was the cartoon of the of the 1700s. It was like this was an illustration of life, and Nancy. The hierarchy of Nancy.
Gotcha. The etching of this young girl was the cartoons.
Well,
of the
yeah,
1700s.
not to insult it,
No.
because I don't think of the word cartoon as an insult.
Right.
That it can be misconstrued as a demeaning thing. I'm not using it anywhere near that because I think that's a high art.
For lots of people, and for me anyway, that was like some of the first art I saw as a kid was comics.
And they're so personal. It's like you recognize, in the same way you recognize Van Gogh, a Charles Schultz.
Right.
If that's the right name, an Elwood Smith.
Yeah. Or
who's
Tex
drawn.
Avery
Tex
or Chuck
Avery.
Jones or whoever did Speed
They're
Racer.
iconic. So, they will have, actually, I think they're already getting their day. But it used to be, it's like they called N.C. Wyeth, he's just an illustrator.
Oh, yeah, Norman Rockwell, too.
Yeah.
He's just amazing.
Right?
So good.
Yeah, it's right.
And I think that still happens to this day. The fine art world loves to sort of like dismiss illustration as something else.
Yeah,
Which, whatever, I don't quite understand.
No, which is to your credit.
Well, that's what the show's about for me is owning up to my ignorance.
No. That was the opposite of ignorance.
Yeah, and this is a good place to take a break. You're listening to Correct Me If I'm Norm, and now we're going to have a word from our sponsor, which is the Epicurean right here. So good, a beautiful, beautiful store. Who has kindly allowed Matt to set up this state-of-the-art recording studio in the nook behind the cash register.
Downtown Rhinecliff.
Downtown Rhinecliff. Also known as the corner store. Do you hear that? People call this the corner store, right?
Yes. I think that, it shows how long you've lived here. If you call it the corner store, wouldn't you say?
and while you were here 30 years and now 2 years away, what was here before?
Wow. It's so interesting. When I moved to Rhinebeck, Rhinecliff was a little bit down and out.
Uh-huh.
It was kind of my house where my friend lived was the fanciest house in town.
Ooh.
Which it's not anymore.
Well, since you moved out, it's not. Yeah.
No. Well, I lived there. I made sure it became sluggier and sluggier. But it had a lot. There were very old people who lived here at that time. I was a chick. It was a lot of
a chick meaning a young woman.
Little chickie babe.
Uh-huh.
It's just and my kids when we lived in Rhinebeck, their goal in life. Now, they were 5 years old, okay, just to put this in perspective, was to live by the river in maybe a shack in Rhinecliff and carve wood. And that's what they hoped that would happen to them when they grew up. And I said, I think you're going to reach your goals. I think that your aspirations will be met.
Yeah.
So when I moved, I moved here, and there were a lot of kind of halfway houses where people would take in other people and I don't know if they were itinerant. I don't know exactly what the situation was, but it was very interesting. There'd be a lot of people who lived in certain homes who didn't have cars, and they'd be hitchhiking to town.
Right.
And there was one guy who was a jazz musician. He was this beautiful kind of, I'm short, and he was not much taller than I was, and he always wore one of those Scottish kind of driving hats.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, and he'd get in your car, and he'd go, thank you so much, and he'd talk about all the jazz greats, and he played with them, and so a lot of people didn't take the time to chat with him.
I think he plays the sax in front of CVS on weekends now.
No, he would. Yeah, well, maybe. I think he played the opening to your show.
Oh, maybe so.
So as time went on, and the older people of the town died, a whole young group came in and have children. A lot of them. So it's quite amazing to hear voices of children and laughter, and it's really, I've watched the evolution.
Right.
And before I lived here, a friend of mine lived here, and he said there were so many kids here that they had to have 2 school bus stops, and they had or 2 school buses, and they all came and got on the bus. I mean, it was so that group aged out.
Right.
They all got old. And then the next group came in, like 25 years later, of kids.
And did this corner store sort of morph into different things to support the changing population?
When I lived here, it was an apartment.
This very place?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it had gone through several stores. One store was kind of hip, but the town wasn't ready for that.
Right.
And then there came a store that wasn't quite as hip, and the town had gotten too hip for it.
Right.
It had Hamburger Helper, and people weren't looking for that.
Right.
So Patricia's, perfect timing.
It's a little hip.
It definitely is. But this area is a little
the right place at the right time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, the clientele and the store are meshed.
Yeah.
It's perfect
Yeah,
timing.
it seems like it. There's so much gorgeous stuff in here.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And
Yeah.
Patricia's a cool cat. So
Yeah, Patricia's
why
a
wouldn't
cool
you
cat.
want to come down and see her?
Yeah. All right. Well, I've got another question I'm dying to ask you, but it's cocktail hour. We're a little bit late for the cocktail.
That's probably good.
Part of the deal on the show was every guest is going to bring a cocktail.
I know. I'm a little bit of a slacker.
And we're going to talk about what the cocktail is, and we're going to imbibe right here in the radio.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
So what did you bring?
I brought.
Oh, don't put that away.
Oh, my favorite liquor is tequila.
Okay.
My theory is that every liquor has its high.
Okay.
And wine is like you want to kiss. Whiskey, you want to sit in a big leather chair and talk literature.
Right.
Tequila, you want to prance around and dance with the fairies and just play.
Great.
So it's like my favorite. And
Okay.
I found in Germantown this, during the pandemic, I tested a lot of different, because I've always been feared of drinking alone in my house, because I had a situation that I didn't want to ever repeat in my family line.
I see.
And so I went, in the pandemic, I'm going to drink a shot of either whiskey or tequila every day. It's medicinal. So I started doing whiskey because I thought that was cool.
What kind of whiskey?
I don't even know. It changed
Yeah,
every week. And then somebody said, oh, your glycemic index pops way up with that. So tequila, I drink, and, I'm getting older, and I think about my health a little more than I used to,
Yeah.
And so I started trying tequilas. And this one I love. It's called El Jimador.
El Jimador. And what does that mean, El Jimador?
Norm, you were not supposed to ask me any questions I didn't
oh, good.
know.
Good. All right, well, I've got ice right here.
Okay, I do know what that is.
Yeah, and you've got tequila. And what are we drinking with the tequila?
We are drinking my favorite summertime drink, even though it's cooler. It's tequila and tonic with lime. Oh, but we need a knife.
Oh, a knife. I'm sure they have a knife here.
Did they know I was coming? They might not.
Not sure.
Let me see here. Can I take this?
Yeah, are you going to go out and look for a knife? Oh, Matt's
I'll
going
go.
to look for a knife. You can keep talking to me. So do you still do this? A shot a night
I
for
do.
purely medicinal
Well,
purposes?
honestly, I was afraid that, oh man, it's going to start creeping up.
That
I'm going to go,
sounds-
I have a shot. Oh, I'll have a little more. I have not done that. I have not creeped it up.
Oh, you've not kept it up.
No, of course, the
Okay.
shot is a cup. No, no. The shot
That's
is
right,
about a
that's the question.
shot.
How big's your shot?
Like
Right,
that.
That one's yours. This one's mine.
And
Yeah.
you tell me when to stop.
Oh, no. Tell me when to stop. That's perfect.
Is that
Thank
right?
you. Yeah, I want you to make it how you like to make it.
Oh, I don't make
So-
it with ice, so I don't.
Matt has found us a knife. Thank you so much. If you pass me a lime, I'll slice it on my cutting board here,
Okay.
which I just
This is
happened
probably
to bring
fascinating
with.
to listen to. We should be.
It's like a clipboard, yeah.
Da-da-da-da.
Super fascinating.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah. All right. So, what do you want? Like a wedge or a quarter of the lime, or
I like give me half the lime.
half a lime? All right. Good. Well, that makes the slicing easy.
Yeah.
Here's your half a lime.
Thank you.
Here's my half a lime.
This can explode. So if you're all you at home could be doing the same thing. It's called Drink Along with Norm.
Drink along with Grace.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And do you squeeze the lime in there?
I do.
Okay. Well, I'm having your drink.
Yeah, you're gonna really, hopefully, like it.
All right. Good. Well,
Oh wait.
yeah. Thank you, Grace, for pouring me a nice
Thank you,
little
Norm,
cocktail.
for thinking of this idea.
Grace is squeezing her lime into hers. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Clink.
And cheers.
Cheers, Norm. This
Yeah.
is to your debut.
And yours and Matt's. Is this the station's
congratulations,
soft
you guys.
opening? Soft debut? That's spectacular.
The word soft opening, do
Whatever.
soft launch. You
Yeah,
know?
soft launch. I don't.
Soft opening.
I don't always have the words.
So,
Are you-
your pornographic days.
Oh, those were the days, the halcyon days.
No, so Norm, you saw it, right, Matt? It was this wonderful lecture on the history of pornography. So I tell my kids that I'm going to go see a lecture on pornography, and of course, they want to know how it was. And I said, it was like sitting around a campfire and having the most wonderful camp counselor tell you all about pornography. It was the coziest night.
I wouldn't go to that camp. Could you imagine?
Pornography camp.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that was the idea behind that show anyway. It was that boys from a young age are taught to look at pornography.
Yeah.
The comedians, culture, your friends, everybody. So it's kind of, America is kind of porn camp. It was sort of part of my,
Well, you
my
did it-
thesis for this thing.
What?
Huh? What?
You did it in the most benevolent way.
Yeah,
It was
well,
really well done.
Thank you for coming and supporting.
Oh, great.
So now that we're drinking, I get the hard questions. You said I was asking you about
Is it true?
about. I think I was asking you about the pendant, or maybe it was the young girl, the looking up at the cartoon character Nancy. You said you try not to think too much. I said, what were you thinking?
Oh.
You said you try not to think too much. So
Well,
when you're working, where do you come from? Do you come from sort of an intellectual place? You planned it out. You've got an idea what you want to do or say, or you're just following your instincts and whims. And
it's very interesting you asked me that because I have not thought
God,
about that.
the first interesting question.
Well,
We're
I was hoping.
40
I
minutes
knew it
into
would
this.
happen. I know. I was tapping my foot. Not at all. So, doing production work that you are making to sell, and in my case, I sell to a store who has to approve it, and then they have to sell it to somebody else who has to approve it. So you're really thinking about what's saleable.
Right.
Right? And so in the boxes that I do, I thought about them a lot. Like the box here that you have it's a man who is standing in a desert with shorts and a shirt on and holding two suitcases when it's flat on the when the lid is horizontal to the earth. And there are little beads that go into make up his shorts and his shirt and
Right.
the suitcases. And in the middle of the night one night, I just woke up and I thought about those pens that you have that you, as a kid, and you turn them and the woman gets naked.
Right. Yeah.
And I went, it's gravity. It's all gravity. It's
Right.
science.
Action pen.
And so I went, those little beads are going to go to the lowest place they can get to the earth. If it's
The
If
lowest
it's
place.
horizontal to the earth, that lid is going to fill in his shorts and his shirt because they're a recessed cutout area in the lid. And if you turn it vertical to the earth, those beads are going to fall to the fall out of his clothes.
Right.
And so it's like underneath his clothes when they fall off, he's covered with tattoos, which are all done digitally.
So
Every little tattoo
you
is put
added
on.
the tattoos
I
on
added
there.
them on. And
so you got to picture this old guy with sort of an old-timey mustache.
yeah, looks
And-
like a muscle guy.
And he's standing in front of a saguaro
He
cactus.
was not originally. That's again
Oh,
digital.
you added that in. So let
And
me
in
just
his
try and
wait,
describe this.
And in his suitcases,
His 2 suitcases. Did you add those as well?
they were dumbbells or barbells or something
perfect.
like that. And
So-
in them, I'm sorry, you tell.
Yeah. So there's 2 pictures of this guy. You added the tattoos. You added a kitten and a dog in the dumbbells, making them suitcases.
With
and
a
the
dog
two
and a cat,
the 2
so.
pictures are right on top of each other. And in one of them, you cut out his arms and his torso and sort of
You cut out his clothes.
his shorts.
You cut
And-
out what would be like a paper doll outfit.
And so I'm holding this thing perpendicular to Earth right now, and I see the guy, and he's wearing like a jock strap or something, and he's holding these things. I see all of his tattoos. But then when I sort of hold this parallel to the Earth, these little black dots fill in all of that.
That's right.
So I no longer see the kitten and
He's
the puppy,
covered.
and he looks like he's wearing a black T-shirt and black shorts.
Yeah.
Why? Why'd you do that?
That it's because you got to have fun.
It's so much fun.
You just got to have
It's
fun.
really, really
and,
super
you know,
fun.
When I sell them, you have your little blah, blah, blah that you say to 200 people who walk
Your
by.
spiel.
Your spiel. And, so I do it and I tilt it and I go, what? What's a guy doing in a desert with a dog and a cat? And I go, actually, if you keep this on your desk and you are stressed, you spend 30 seconds with it and your blood pressure will lower. It's a form of meditation.
I
And
love
people,
that.
I'll take 2.
And have you used this technique before?
Well, the first one I did was a nudie.
A
And
nudie,
so she has a party dress on,
Uh-huh.
and her dress falls off, and it's like Aphrodite or something like that. So I call up my brother Tom, and I go, Tom, I made a box that was like that pen I had when I was little that you turn over and she gets
Right.
naked. And there's a long silence, and he goes, Grace, that was my pen. And then he went, it went missing a long time ago.
Yeah.
So it was like busted.
Busted. Well, the sister stole it.
Yeah, his sister, his bratty little sister.
Huh. Well, it's a beautiful effect. And I love the spiel that it lowers blood pressure. That's hilarious.
Don't you feel better?
I do. Well, I'm looking at it right
You
here.
look very
and-
calm.
yeah. Well, good because I'm a little bit stressed.
I don't see why. What?
Speaking of which, this cocktail is really delicious.
Isn't it good?
Yeah, I sort of thought, tequila and tonic. I've never heard
But
of
it's
such a thing.
fantastic.
It is.
It's
It's delightful.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not much on the sweets of cocktails, but if you gave me one, I would
Nuts.
enjoy
It's
it.
not sweet. It's not tart.
No,
it's
it's
just-
just refreshing. As
It
they
is
say.
very refreshing. Okay, so you grew up in Blackleck, and then when did you leave your hometown?
Well, when I was about 14, my older brother, Tom, this was probably 1966, 67. He was, he is very, very, very smart. And it was a time when people grew their hair longer. And he grew his hair over his ear.
Oh,
And the principal said, Gunning, you come back in the summer, or you come back next fall like that, and you're not coming back, just letting you know.
wow.
So he applied to NYU at 16, and he got in.
Wow.
And my mom said, I don't really want him to move to New York City
No.
by himself. We're all moving. So this was like I'd already started high school, or I'd started ninth grade, and he was in senior. He would have been a senior. And so I started school, and we, within a week, we just moved. And we moved to not Jane Street. We moved to Charles Street in Greenwich
Down in the
Village.
West Village.
In the West Village.
Huh. Charles and what? Do you remember?
And 7th. And
Nice.
between 7th and Greenwich.
Uh-huh.
And I went to Elizabeth Irwin High School.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it changed my life. It just totally changed all of our lives.
And you were in what grade when you went there?
I was a ninth grader.
When you started at Elizabeth Irwin.
Yeah.
So you went from cornfields.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing a pretty flat landscape.
Very, except our ravine, of course.
Yeah, we had the ravine with the Conestoga wagon
Yes.
rotting in the back. And you moved to New York City. That just sounds
Insane,
earth-shattering.
right? Yeah. But it was like the best thing.
How so?
Well, we were odd.
Yeah.
In Ohio, we were considered to be kind of odd.
Was that nice? Was that fun or bad? For somebody that age, it seems like it could be either way.
It was fine. You just don't, it's your life.
Right.
But when I moved to New York, people actually liked me. They actually liked me.
More than they had
much
liked
more.
you.
I mean, the Katy boys tolerated me. My neighbors, Connie Geiger.
Katy boys.
Because we're neighbors, and there are no other kids around, so you're going to play together. But I can remember Billy and Katie going, "I don't like you anymore." And it was like, okay. I mean, you just dealt with it. It was like, oh well. But when I went to New York City, all of a sudden, people thought it was interesting.
Right.
Nobody had any thought about me one way or another. I mean, not my family. My family loved me. I mean, I wasn't
Right.
poor sad sack. But, as far as friends go, it was just because you were there.
Yeah.
It wasn't, you didn't become friends by choice.
Well, yeah, school's easy when you're all together in this.
People didn't, I don't think I was hated. I wasn't tortured or anything, but people didn't like me that much in school.
In 8th grade, but in 9th grade, you were a curiosity.
I was a curiosity. I had a funny accent, Like I'd go, so does anybody have any cash? And they go, what?
Cash? Really?
Yeah, or I'd talk about my school bus driver, Betty Cash Dollar. And they go, Betty what?
Cash dollar.
Yeah.
Wow. So that sounds like a real sort of big point for a young girl's life.
Yeah.
To all of a sudden be interesting.
Yeah.
How do you think that's played
Or
out
for the,
over the
well,
years?
I moved, and so then they didn't have to find out I wasn't that interesting.
When did you move?
We moved back,
Oh,
but I actually ended up. My brother's college roommate became my boyfriend, but I was 14 and he was 19, so
Oh, boy.
it was like
That's trouble.
We were very careful. He was a very nice person.
Even in the West Village, I think that was frowned upon.
It was we weren't like full on boyfriend girl, but he loved my family.
Right.
He loved my mother. He liked my father. He thought our family was really great. So he would come over all the time. So he became a friend of the families first.
That's nice. And
Yeah.
how long did you live in the city before you moved back to?
Only a year.
Uh-huh.
And this is the sad thing,
Yeah.
because I regret this on so many levels, mainly to my mother. My mother said, "It's up to you if we stay, Grace." But I was told, because, Ohio schools and New York City schools were very different, I would have had to go to French classes in the summer and algebra classes in the summer
To catch up.
and I didn't want to do it.
And
I
so
went, "Let's move
you
back."
chose to move back.
I think that's called an ASS. My poor mother, she was in heaven living there.
So you must think about that over the years. Like, what if you had stayed?
Have I hurt myself physically? No.
Congratulations. Hats off to you. That's really nice. But I mean, everybody, I think, has like big crossroads in their lives. And that sounds like a major crossroads. I mean,
What it did is it ended up not taking the crossroad. I mean, I just went back to the other corner. You know what I mean?
Well-
I didn't cross the road.
right.
But I did, in the sense that, then all my friends were in New York City.
Right.
And at the time, my parents were very liberal. I was kind of the wildest one in my family at that age, And I was dating boys, I was kissing boys, I was going out, swimming holes at night and stuff like that. And the rest of my older brother and sister were wild in their own sense, but they were much more, intellectual and chess players, and I was kind of my parents were tired too.
Right.
You
I'll
know?
bet.
And
4
they were
kids
just
is a lot.
And so I would go, I'm driving to New York this weekend. And they would go, okay.
And was Black Lick in eastern Ohio?
Not really.
You said it was east
like
of
a
Columbus,
10-hour
so it's sort of
drive.
central.
But you just, and they also had an air fare that was student airfare. It was $36 round trip.
Oh man, I love that. And did your brother stay at NYU for 4 years?
Yeah, yeah. And he's now he's retired, but he's a professor of film, very renowned, and written many books.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's so sweet. You must be kind of proud of your big brother.
I'm very proud of him.
It's amazing to go off at that age and do something like that.
Yeah. Well, now, when did you leave Ohio? Where did you go?
Oh, well, typical stuff. At 18, I went to college. I went to college in Dallas, which was weird and wonderful because it was a whole different world, but still part of the U.S. And then at 22, I graduated and went and got a job.
What was your first job?
Moved to New York City, working at an ad agency in Times Square. It was
wow.
It was
now,
amazing.
When was that?
Wait a minute. Who's interviewing whom here?
What year was it? Cause,
that was 1982.
Okay. Was it? I mean, because Times Square was really crazy in the 70s.
New York City in 1982 was turning. They were turning the ship from the 70s.
Yeah.
But Times Square was gritty and weird.
Oh, weird.
And there were these like peep shows and like X-rated movie houses and strip club things.
But they also had westerns and old movies in those theaters. And we used to go there in the 70s. And my favorite story from that time was, so we'd go, because my brother was a film student, and we'd go and we'd see, Jimmy Stewart films, or we'd see, just the classics, and sit there. And at one point, we're sitting there, and we hear this guy in the audience go, "You're sorry. You're sorry. You piss on my date, and all you can say is you're sorry." So that was that transition. It was like, people just bums went because it was warm and they could be there.
Or cold in the summer.
Yeah.
Or to have a Pee Wee Herman sighting.
Well, true.
I never went to, I'm 22, pretty much fresh off the boat from Cincinnati. I never went to any of that stuff on 42nd Street or 8th Avenue, which was even kind of skeevier. Yeah. Because it was just terrifying.
Yeah, and you drive down the highways and the prostitutes under the bridges, under the West Side Highway.
Yeah.
It's quite amazing, really.
Yeah, it was. I'm really happy to have lived in New York City
during that time
when it still had a bunch of its grit. And
yeah.
And eventually, I moved in 1986. I moved to the West Village, just north and west of you, to Horatio and Washington.
Oh yeah.
Which was just across the street from the meatpacking district,
yes.
which was the epicenter of transvestite prostitution in New York City.
Yes.
And it was.
Were you there? Or I was there when the. I'm forgetting the name of the crazy night where the police came in and the riots happened.
The Stonewall?
Stonewall, yes.
No.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
Yeah, amazing place. And, places change. And Rhinebeck's changing right now. Rhinecliff is changing right now.
So much, yeah.
Things change. And it always seems sort of a measure of how old and fuddy-duddy you are. How much you're complaining about things changing.
But, that's the part I like about getting older. You look back and you see the change.
It's nice,
you see the evolution, or of people even. For me, seeing little children that I knew, they're adults and they have children and they have the same qualities that they did at 4.
But I got a hunch you're not railing against the change, but rather appreciating it. I mean, that's the only constant, really, is change.
Yeah. I mean, you certainly can't stop it.
No. But when you listen to people complain about it, you think that maybe they feel they can stop by complaining enough.
That's true, but we got news for you. Know what? That's what this show is for. Let them know it cannot be changed. Change is going to come. Wait, I think there's a song about that.
Is there? Who sang that song? See,
is it Nina Simone? No,
I don't know. I'm going to guess Bob Dylan.
Oh,
but that's
there are a lot
easy
of
guess.
variables.
Yeah,
Well, if you want to call in,
Yeah, callers call in.
and we'll play the song for you.
I wanted to find a gag 800 number that would go to some place like an automated like rejection line, and they have them that you can give out to dates, I guess. So you may.
But isn't there a number that they always say on TV, like it's 555-9321?
There are made up numbers. There is a studio number here.
Oh,
wow.
my God.
845, thanks, Matt. 845-307-RHIN. 845-307-RHIN.
But we could sing the songs to you if we know them, but we do not have the turntable.
Yeah, maybe somebody could call in and sing the song. All right, well, I have 30 questions now, and we have 2 minutes to do them in. Oh, wow, here's a good one. Were you a Girl Scout or a Brownie?
No. I lived in the country. We were in the woods all the time.
Right.
We left in the morning. We came back at night.
So was it pretty flat there? I mean, that's my impression of central Ohio. And
we had a ravine that was cut through by the Black Lick Creek. And it was like literally like that. So
Wow.
our house was designed by a student of Frank Lloyd Wright. And
nice.
it cantilevered out over the ravine.
Really? That
Yeah.
sounds gorgeous.
Oh,
so when
so
you
gorgeous.
went back to Blacklick, did you go back to that house?
Yes. Yes.
So you all didn't sell the house?
No.
You
No, my
rented
parents
it?
built it in the 40s.
Wow.
This young guy, Tony Van Fossen, and Tony Smith, who's a sculptor, and his daughter's Kiki Smith.
Yeah, sure.
He designed part of the house, and a guy named Larry Cuneo, who later became the set designer for the Lucy Arnaz show, or the.
Okay, so what's it is incredibly hip cabal of people designing this house in Nowheresville, Ohio.
And the guy was 18 years old.
How did your folks get these people there to do that?
I'm not sure how they all became friends. Honestly, the people who bought the house was falling down. This is like bad timing to start this story. The house was falling down, and the people who bought the house and have basically resurrected it like the phoenix out of the ashes have written a book about the resurrection of this house. And it has a lot more information than I knew, because I was just a kid. You often don't know these things as a...
Sure, no, you take them for granted. That's
Yeah,
your
it's
world.
just my
Why would you ever
house.
question it? It's
like,
yeah.
It's cool. People like it, but
And do you have pictures of it? From,
Oh, yeah.
That's nice.
yeah.
And do you ever incorporate them into your art?
I think I was influenced a lot by proportions.
Right.
If you have great proportions in anything, it's pleasing, and you don't know why.
And you do, Grace.
Well,
I'm here
thank
looking
you.
at you right now on the radio. I told you I was going to work in a little Andrew Cuomo into this thing. It successfully stayed out of politics for almost an entire hour until that comment. I'm sorry to drop the ball.
What we'd say many people have said already.
Yeah. Well, it looks like it's time to wrap it up, for crying out loud. I can't believe it went so fast. Grace, you're amazing.
No.
Thank you. Grace Gunning, you got to go see her stuff. Go to Art Studio Views, with an S, artstudioviews.com, and check out this weekend's studio open houses.
And I'm now a big fan of your show.
Grace Gunning is one of them. And the show,
'Cause you were so
correct me
nice
if
to
I'm
me.
Norm, has its first fan. And thank you, Leslie, for hooking me up with Grace. And thanks to Matt Rosenberg and to our host, the Epicurean.
Epicurean, yay.